The lights dimmed in the circular lecture hall of the Galactic Academy. 50 students from across the known universe settled into their adaptive seats, appendages of various kinds holding note-taking devices. The chamber hummed with quiet anticipation. Professor Gray stepped onto the central platform. His tall, slender form was easy to see from all angles of the room. Though he appeared old with silver-tinted skin that matched his name, his 6 eyes were sharp and alert as they scanned the classroom. "Today we begin our most controversial unit," he announced. His voice carried clearly without needing amplification. "We will study the planet designated Sol 3, known to its inhabitants as Earth." A wave of murmurs swept through the class. Earth was infamous. "I see many of you are already familiar with its reputation," Professor Gray continued. "Good. But how many of you know why Earth remains under quarantine status?" Trell, a liquid-form student contained in a hovering cylinder, raised a watery tentacle. "Because humans are savage predators that destroy everything they touch." Several students rippled their membranes or clicked mandibles in agreement. "That is the common belief," Professor Gray said. "But is it accurate? Your assignment for this unit is to determine precisely why the Galactic Council maintains Earth's Death World classification." The holographic display behind him activated, showing a blue-green planet spinning slowly. It looked harmless enough. "Each of you will study different aspects of Earth and its dominant species. You will prepare presentations explaining what dangers they might pose to galactic society. Consider this a practical exercise in xenobiology and threat assessment." Mox, an insectoid student with gleaming compound eyes, raised a segmented limb. "Professor, is it true humans breathe corrosive oxygen as their primary gas?" "Correct. Their entire biology is oxygen-based." Horror rippled through the room. Most species found free oxygen highly toxic. Another student, Vix, with feathered sensory organs, spoke up. "I heard they live in radiation from their sun. On purpose." "They do indeed require regular exposure to their star's radiation," Professor Gray confirmed. "And that's just the beginning of their peculiarities." Jack sat in the back row, saying nothing. Unlike his classmates with their dramatic features, he appeared almost plain. His species had evolved for observation and analysis rather than physical specialization. 2 eyes, 4 limbs, and skin that changed color slightly to match surroundings. Nothing remarkable. But those 2 eyes noticed things others missed. "You will work in research groups," Professor Gray continued. "The Academy has positioned remote probes around Earth for your observations. Remember, under no circumstances are you to attempt direct contact with humans. This is observation only." The assignment details appeared on each student's device. Jack scrolled through the categories: biology, environment, social structures, technology, warfare, diseases. "I recommend starting with basic data," Professor Gray advised. "Earth's physical characteristics alone will surprise you. We'll meet again in 3 days to discuss initial findings." As students filed out, talking excitedly about the project, Jack lingered. Something about the professor's tone had caught his attention. "Professor," Jack approached the platform, "you seem to suggest there's more to humans than their dangerous reputation." Professor Gray's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "Did I? You asked if the common belief was accurate. That implies doubt." The professor regarded Jack with newfound interest. "Most students accept the Death World classification without question. Keep that analytical mind active, Jack. You might discover something important." Jack left the lecture hall feeling unsettled. The entire galaxy knew Earth was dangerous. Its quarantine was one of the oldest standing orders of the Galactic Council. Humans were feared across civilized space without ever knowing other species existed. But as he accessed the first data files, Jack couldn't help wondering, what if everyone was afraid for the wrong reasons? 3 days later, the classroom buzzed with excitement. Students clustered in groups, sharing discoveries about Earth that seemed more incredible by the hour. Their adaptive seats adjusted as appendages gestured wildly and voice volumes rose. Professor Gray entered, and the room quieted immediately. I see you've all made progress, he said. Let's hear your initial observations. Trell, your group studied Earth's oceans. Please begin. Trell's liquid form rippled nervously inside the hovering container as images of Earth's seas appeared on the main display. Professor, these oceans are death traps, Trell said. The depths reach over 10 kilometers with crushing pressures that would collapse most spaceship hulls. The water itself contains salt compounds toxic to many species. And the predators. The display showed a massive shark, mouth open to reveal rows of teeth. This creature is just one of thousands of ocean predators. They hunt using scent detection in water. Some can sense electrical impulses from nervous systems. Others use sound to locate prey from kilometers away. Several students pulled their appendages closer to their bodies. Most disturbing, Trell continued, humans regularly enter these waters for recreation. They swim with these predators voluntarily. Mox raised a segmented limb. That matches our findings on human warfare. They are obsessed with violence. The display shifted to show military vehicles and weapons. These humans have developed over 3,000 distinct ways to kill each other. Mox chittered, compound eyes reflecting the images. They split the atom just to create better weapons. They fought global wars that killed millions of their own kind. Their entire history is conflict. Another student from Mox's group added, even when they're not actively fighting, they prepare for war. Every human country maintains killing forces called armies, even during peacetimes. Professor Gray nodded. Vix, what about your research on human diseases? Vix's feathered sensory organs flattened against their head. It's worse than we imagined. Humans live alongside billions of pathogens. Their bodies host more microorganisms than they have cells. Many are constantly infected with various viruses and bacteria, but show no symptoms. The display showed microscopic images of viruses. Most concerning, they've weaponized disease multiple times in their history. They understand perfectly how pathogens work and still choose to live in densely populated groups where infections spread rapidly. Each presentation painted Earth as increasingly horrifying. One group described the extreme temperature variations humans endured. Another detailed the radiation levels from their sun and natural environment. A third explained how humans routinely consumed substances that would kill most galactic species. Throughout it all, Jack remained silent, taking notes and occasionally changing the color of his skin as he processed information differently than his classmates. Finally, Professor Gray turned to him. Jack, you've been quiet. Does your group have anything to add? Jack's skin rippled slightly in the equivalent of clearing his throat. Our findings don't match the prevailing theory. The room went silent. What do you mean? Professor Gray asked, all 6 eyes focused intently. Everyone assumes Earth is classified as dangerous because humans are aggressive predators, Jack said. But our data suggests something else. Humans aren't exceptionally violent compared to other intelligent species during similar development stages. Mox's mandibles clicked rapidly. Did you miss the part about splitting atoms for weapons? No, Jack replied calmly. But I noticed something else. Humans don't just survive on their death world. They thrive on it. They adapt to environments that would kill any of us within minutes. That's what makes them truly dangerous. The classroom erupted in disagreement. Professor Gray raised his upper limbs for silence, then turned to Jack. An interesting theory. Can you prove it? Jack's skin shifted to a determined blue hue. Give me time. I think I can. The Academy's research lab hummed with quiet energy as Jack hunched over his workstation. 3 cycles had passed since the classroom debate, and he had barely slept. His skin had taken on a pale, concentrated gray that his species displayed during deep focus. The door slid open. Professor Gray entered, his tall form casting a long shadow across the floor. You missed the morning discussion group, the professor said. Jack looked up, blinking his eyes to refocus. I found something important. Professor Gray moved closer, all 6 eyes scanning the data displays floating above Jack's station. Show me. Everyone is fixated on human aggression. Jack said, but look at their survival statistics. He pulled up a chart showing injury recovery rates. Humans can lose over half their blood volume and survive. They can live with one lung, one kidney, or even half a brain in extreme cases. Professor Gray leaned forward. Interesting, but many species have redundant systems. It's more than that. Jack swiped to a new display. Humans break bones and simply repair them. They tear muscle tissue deliberately during exercise to make it stronger. Some have survived falling from heights that would shatter any of our bodies. Their gravity is stronger, Professor Gray noted. Exactly. Their world shaped them. Jack's skin rippled with excitement patterns. Look at these temperatures. Another chart appeared. Humans have survived from -40 to +50 degrees on their temperature scale. They live everywhere on their planet. Deserts, ice caps, mountains, islands. Professor Gray's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, his version of thoughtful consideration. You believe their adaptability is more significant than their aggression. I believe their adaptability explains their aggression. Jack brought up historical images of human civilization. They don't just accept their harsh environment. They conquer it. They built cities and deserts. They crossed oceans before they understood science. When they face obstacles, they overcome them through intelligence, cooperation, and sheer determination. Jack's skin had shifted to a passionate orange hue. Their music celebrates endurance. Their stories glorify overcoming impossible odds. Their greatest heroes aren't their strongest fighters, but those who survived when survival seemed impossible. Professor Gray settled into a seat designed for his elongated form. An intriguing perspective. But why would the Galactic Council quarantine a species simply for being survivors? Because survivors become explorers. Jack displayed a map of human space missions. In less than 100 years, they went from primitive flight to landing on their moon. They've sent probes beyond their solar system. They're already making plans to settle on other planets. Jack lowered his voice. And they accomplished this while constantly fighting among themselves. Imagine what they could do if united. Professor Gray was silent for a long moment. Your theory has merit, but the class won't accept it without compelling evidence. The established view of humans as dangerous predators is deeply rooted. Then let me gather more data. Jack's determination showed in his now solid blue skin tone. The final presentations are still 10 cycles away. The other students already have overwhelming evidence supporting the traditional view, Professor Gray warned. Trell has footage of human hunting practices. Mux has documented every war in human history. Vix has cataloged thousands of pathogens humans carry that could devastate galactic populations. But none of them are asking the right question, Jack insisted. The real question isn't whether humans are dangerous. It's why they're dangerous in a way no other species is. Professor Gray's upper limbs moved in a gesture of reluctant agreement. Very well. Continue your research, but be prepared for strong opposition when you present. After the professor left, Jack turned back to his displays. A video played showing humans running a marathon, their bodies pushing through pain and exhaustion. Another showed a human child learning to walk, falling repeatedly, but always getting back up. Jack's skin shifted to deep purple, the color of revelation. It wasn't just that humans could survive incredible dangers. The truly terrifying thing was how they responded to those dangers. They never, ever gave up. Jack sat alone in the observation room, watching Earth through the Academy's remote probes. The other students now avoided him, treating his theories as foolish or even dangerous. Only Professor Gray still took his ideas seriously. The screen showed a human settlement in a region called Alaska. Outside temperatures had dropped to levels that would freeze most galactic species solid. Yet humans not only survived there, they had built homes, created art, and established communities. You're still here. Trell's voice came from behind him. The liquid being's container hovered near the doorway. Just collecting more data, Jack said, not looking away from the screen. Trell moved closer. The whole class is talking about you. They think you've lost your mind. I'm following the evidence. What evidence? Trell's liquid form swirled with frustration patterns. Have you seen what humans did to their oceans? They've killed entire species for food and sport. They dump toxic chemicals into the water that feeds their own crops. Jack turned to face Trell. Yes, they've made terrible mistakes, but they're also the only species we've ever studied that recognize their mistakes and try to fix them. He pulled up new footage on the screen. Look at these conservation efforts. They're actively working to save species they nearly wiped out. They're cleaning oceans they polluted. They're replanting forests they cut down. Too little, too late, Trell said. But they're trying, Jack insisted. Name another predator species that ever tried to protect its prey. Trell had no answer. And look at this. Jack switched to footage of a hospital. Humans develop medicine, not just for themselves, but for other species. They save animals that have no survival value to them. They keep companions of different species in their homes and mourn when they die. What's your point? Trell asked. My point is that we're all missing something important about humans. Yes, they're violent. Yes, they've made mistakes. But they also show something I've never seen in any other apex predator. Empathy that extends beyond their own kind. Trell was silent for a moment. The presentation is tomorrow. Everyone else will show humans as monsters. You'll look foolish. Maybe, Jack agreed. But I'd rather be foolish than wrong. After Trell left, Jack continued his research deep into the night. He found videos of humans risking their lives to save strangers. He found stories of humans forgiving terrible wrongs. He found evidence of humans adopting young from other families, other cultures, even other species. But most importantly, he found something that no other student had bothered to look for: human art. The next morning, Jack entered Professor Gray's office with determined steps. His skin had taken on a confident gold color that his species rarely displayed. "I'm ready for the presentation," he said. Professor Gray looked up from his desk. All 6 eyes studied Jack carefully. The other students have prepared very convincing arguments about human dangers. Your theory will face harsh criticism. I know. You found compelling evidence. Jack nodded. Not just evidence. I found the key to understanding humans. It's not in their biology or their warfare or their diseases. It's in their stories. Their stories. Professor Gray's upper limbs moved in a gesture of confusion. Yes, humans tell stories about everything. Their past, their future, their fears, their hopes. And in those stories, I found a pattern. Jack's skin pulsed with excitement. Humans don't just adapt to survive their world. They imagine better worlds and then try to create them. Professor Gray considered this. An interesting theory, but will it convince the class? I don't know, Jack admitted. But I have one advantage none of the other students have. What's that? Jack's skin shifted to a determined blue. I stopped seeing humans as alien monsters. I started seeing them as people, different from us, but people nonetheless. And once you see them that way, everything about them makes sense. Professor Gray's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. Then I look forward to your presentation, Jack. It should be most illuminating. The presentation hall was filled beyond capacity. Word had spread about the controversial theories being presented, and even students from other classes had come to watch. Professor Gray sat in the front row, his 6 eyes unblinking as he observed the proceedings. Trell went first. The liquid being's presentation showed devastating footage of Earth's ocean predators, storms that could level cities, and underwater volcanoes that spewed toxic chemicals. Humans evolved on a planet where water itself can kill, Trell concluded. Is it any wonder they became dangerous? Next came Mox. The insectoid's presentation was a brutal catalog of human warfare, from ancient battles with primitive weapons to modern conflicts with bombs that could level mountains. Humans fight over everything, Mox chittered. Territory, resources, beliefs, even symbolic ideas like freedom and justice. They will certainly bring this violence to the stars if allowed. Vix followed with a terrifying overview of Earth's diseases. The feathered being displayed microscopic footage of viruses and bacteria that had killed billions of humans throughout history. And yet, Vix noted, humans continue to live in crowded cities where disease spreads rapidly. They've even created new diseases accidentally through their medical practices. Contact with humans would risk galactic pandemics. One by one, each student presented compelling evidence for Earth's classification as a death world and humans as a dangerous species. The audience clicked, hummed, and rippled in agreement with each new horror revealed about humanity. Finally, it was Jack's turn. He walked to the center of the room, his skin a calm blue. The audience went quiet, many expecting a humiliating failure from the student who had challenged conventional wisdom. "My classmates have shown you many truths about humans," Jack began. "They are violent. Their planet is dangerous. Their bodies carry diseases that could kill us. All of this is correct." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the crowd. They had expected him to argue against these points. But they've missed the most important truth. Jack activated the display behind him. The real reason humans are dangerous isn't because they're violent predators. It's because they're the most adaptable species we've ever encountered. The screen showed a human in a deep-sea diving suit. Humans can't breathe underwater, so they built machines to do it for them. The image changed to a human on a mountain peak. They can't survive extreme cold, so they created protective clothing. Next came a human in a spacecraft. They can't survive in space, so they engineered environments that let them go there anyway. Jack's skin pulsed with conviction. Humans don't adapt their bodies to their environment like we do. They adapt their environment to their bodies, and they do it with incredible speed and creativity. The next images showed human art, paintings, sculptures, buildings. "Look at how they see their world," Jack said. "They don't just survive it. They transform it. They find beauty in danger. They create meaning from chaos. They imagine possibilities where none exist, and then make those possibilities real." Mox's mandibles clicked in disagreement. "This doesn't change the fact that they're violent and unpredictable." "No," Jack agreed, "but it explains why. Humans aren't violent because they're monstrous. They're violent because their world taught them that survival requires struggle. Their unpredictability comes from their greatest strength. They can imagine solutions no other species would consider." Jack showed new footage. Humans rescuing animals from disasters, rebuilding cities after destruction, helping strangers in need. Most importantly, humans possess something rare among apex predators: the capacity to change. They learn from mistakes. They grow beyond their instincts. They dream of being better than they are. The room had gone completely silent. Every eye, sensor, and appendage was focused on Jack. "The real reason Earth is quarantined," Jack said quietly, "isn't to protect us from human violence. It's because the Galactic Council fears what would happen if humans brought their adaptability to the stars. They would outcompete us not through aggression, but through sheer determination to survive and thrive where others cannot." Professor Gray's 6 eyes blinked in sequence as he watched the faces of the other students. For the first time, they were seeing humans not as monsters, but as something perhaps more frightening, competitors unlike any the galaxy had ever known. The day after the presentations, Professor Gray called an emergency session. The entire class gathered in the simulation laboratory, a vast chamber designed to create realistic environments from across the galaxy. "Yesterday's presentations gave us much to consider," Professor Gray said, his tall form moving gracefully around the central console. "But theories are just theories without testing. Today, we will put them to the test." Surprised murmurs rippled through the gathered students. "How can we test theories about humans?" Mox asked, compound eyes glittering with concern. "We can't bring them here." "No," Professor Gray agreed, "but we can create virtual humans based on all the data we've collected. The Academy's simulation engines are the most sophisticated in the galaxy." Jack stepped forward, his skin a cautious yellow. "What exactly are we testing, Professor?" Your theory, Jack. All six of Professor Gray's eyes fixed on him. You claim humans are dangerous not because of their aggression, but because of their adaptability. Let's see if that's true. Professor Gray activated the main console. The simulation will place virtual representatives of various species, including humans, in a series of survival scenarios. The parameters are fair. Each species will have their natural abilities and typical technology level. We'll observe how they respond to increasingly challenging environments. The students gathered around viewing stations as the simulation initialized. Virtual representatives appeared in the chamber, an insectoid like Mox, a liquid being like Trell, a feathered creature like Vix, a being similar to Jack's species, and two humans, male and female. The first environment is a temperate forest, Professor Gray announced. Standard gravity, oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, moderate temperatures. All species should find this comfortable. The simulation began. All species navigated the forest environment easily, finding food and shelter. The humans were slower than some species but demonstrated problem-solving skills by creating simple tools. Now we'll introduce complications, Professor Gray said. Reduced temperature, limited food supply, and predator species. As conditions worsened, differences emerged. The insectoid species became sluggish in the cold. The liquid being struggled to maintain cohesion. The feathered creature hoarded food, but was easily targeted by predators. The humans, however, adapted quickly. They built a fire for warmth, constructed weapons for defense, and developed a system for finding and preserving food. Interesting, Mox admitted reluctantly. But these are basic survival skills. Many species have them. Let's increase the challenge, Professor Gray said. The next scenario placed all species on a volcanic island with toxic gases, unstable ground, and rising water levels. One by one, the virtual species failed. The insectoid was overcome by gases. The liquid being couldn't navigate the rough terrain. Others made crucial mistakes that led to their simulation ending. The humans not only survived but thrived. They built a raft to escape the island, using materials no other species thought to combine. They created breathing filters from available plants. They worked together with remarkable efficiency. Final scenario, Professor Gray announced. Complete environmental collapse. The simulation now showed a world falling apart. Earthquakes, storms, radiation, disease, and resource depletion all at once. The remaining virtual species quickly failed under the extreme conditions. The humans, however, did something unexpected. They built a sealed habitat using technology scavenged from their previous environments. Inside it, they created a miniature ecosystem. When one human was injured, the other performed medical treatment that shouldn't have been possible with their limited resources. When food ran out, they developed a way to synthesize nutrients from edible materials. Even when their shelter was destroyed by a massive earthquake, they immediately began rebuilding, using new techniques based on what had failed previously. The simulation ended with the humans still alive after conditions that had eliminated every other species. The laboratory fell silent. The students stared at the results displayed on their screens, processing the implications. Finally, Trell spoke. They never stopped trying. Even when survival was impossible, they refused to accept it. That's what makes them different, Jack said quietly. Not their strength or their intelligence, but their stubborn refusal to give up, no matter the odds. Professor Gray shut down the simulation. It seems Jack's theory has merit. The question now becomes, is this adaptability something to fear or something to admire? No one had an answer, but many of the students looked at the now empty simulation chamber with new understanding in their eyes, sensory organs, and perception fields. The final day of the Earth Study Unit arrived. The classroom was packed with not just students but several Academy officials as well. Rumors had spread about the controversial simulation results and the radical theories being proposed about humans. Professor Gray stood at the center of the room, his tall form commanding attention. All 6 of his eyes surveyed the gathered crowd before he spoke. Today concludes our study of Earth and its dominant species. Our class has made some remarkable discoveries, challenging long-held beliefs about why Earth remains under quarantine. Before I share my own conclusions, I have a confession to make. The room went completely still. I have visited Earth personally. Gasps and murmurs erupted throughout the chamber. Jack's skin flashed in surprise patterns, shifting rapidly between colors. As some of you may know, Professor Gray continued once the noise settled. I served on the Galactic Council's Contact Assessment Committee for 40 cycles before joining the Academy. During that time, I led a covert mission to Earth to evaluate the species firsthand. Mox's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. That's against Council law. The Council authorized the mission, Professor Gray clarified. What they didn't authorize was my conclusion. He activated the room's display system. An image appeared showing a younger Professor Gray in disguise, standing among humans in what appeared to be a primitive Earth city. I lived among humans for nearly a full Earth year. I witnessed their conflicts and their kindness. I saw their ruthless business practices and their selfless charity. Most importantly, I observed how they faced challenges. The professor's voice softened. In one small town, a river flooded, destroying many homes. Instead of abandoning the area as any reasonable species would, the entire community came together to rebuild. Strangers traveled from hundreds of miles away just to help people they'd never met. When I asked why, one human told me simply, "Because someday I might need help too." Jack's skin had settled into a deep, attentive blue. You found evidence of their cooperation, not just their survival skills. I found evidence of something more profound, Professor Gray said. Humans don't just adapt to survive. They adapt to help others survive. Their empathy extends beyond their families, beyond their social groups, sometimes even beyond their species. Trell's liquid form swirled in confusion patterns. But why keep Earth quarantined if humans have these positive qualities? Because the Council fears what I'm about to tell you. Professor Gray's voice became solemn. Earth is not classified as a death world because humans are dangerous to us. Earth is classified as a death world because the rest of the galaxy would be dangerous to humans. Confused murmurs filled the room. Most galactic species evolved on worlds far more hospitable than Earth, Professor Gray explained. We faced fewer predators, milder climates, less competition for resources. Our bodies and minds evolved accordingly. We created a galactic society based on specialization and careful resource management. Professor Gray brought up new images, space stations, terraformed planets, carefully engineered environments. Humans evolved solving problems we never had to face. They developed adaptability and resilience we never needed. If humans joined galactic society, they wouldn't conquer through violence as we feared. They would simply outperform us in countless ways without even trying. Jack stood up. So the quarantine isn't to protect us from them. It's to protect us from ourselves, Professor Gray said. From the fear and insecurity we would feel seeing humans thrive in conditions where we struggle. From the economic and social upheaval that would follow as humans revolutionize our technology, medicine, and exploration techniques. The professor shut down the display. The truth about Earth isn't that it's too dangerous for humans to leave. It's that humans have become too extraordinary because of their dangerous world. They are the ultimate adaptation specialists in a galaxy of comfortable specialists. Silence filled the room as everyone processed this revelation. So what happens now? Vix asked, feathered sensory organs quivering. Professor Gray looked around the room, meeting the eyes and sensory organs of each student. That depends on all of you. This class isn't just about understanding Earth. It's about preparing the next generation for the inevitable day when humans join us among the stars. His gaze settled on Jack. Some of you have already taken the first step, seeing humans not as monsters to fear, but as people to understand. Different from us, yes. Shaped by a harsher world, certainly. But in that difference lies not just danger, but hope.